You'll never solve it. The Millionaire CEO laughed, until the janitor did the impossible. The silence on the 10th floor of Tech Solutions Global was so dense that the sound of the marker clicking against the glass table echoed like a gunshot. Alexander, Alex Thorne, CEO and heir to the technological empire, flashed a smile with perfectly straight teeth as his cold blue eyes swept across the face of every engineer present. $10 million, he repeated, his voice carrying the distinctive cadence of someone who has never had to beg for anything. 10 million for whoever solves this in 6 months. But we all know it's impossible, don't we? No one responded. The 23 engineers, graduates of the world's top universities, Stanford, MIT, Caltech, stared at the whiteboard covered in equations like soldiers facing a minefield. The GridSmart 3.0 system, an energy management project for smart cities, had become Tech Solutions' nightmare. Critical failures occurred whenever the load hit 60% capacity, causing cascading blackouts exactly when the transition between residential solar panels and the main utility grid was supposed to happen. $200 million in contracts hung in the balance. Outside the bluish glass room, Elena Santos, a slender woman of color, mopped the floor in rhythmic movements. Invisible as the furniture she polished, Elena paused for a second when the buzz in the room intensified. Her brown eyes lifted to the whiteboard, and something within her stirred. Those equations, those variables, she knew that mathematical dance. "Hey you, custodial staff." Elena snapped back to reality with a start. Sarah Jenkins, Alex's executive assistant, looked at her impatiently. "Mr. Thorne doesn't like seeing the cleaning crew during important meetings. Come back after 5. Elena lowered her head and mumbled, "Yes, ma'am," pushing her cleaning cart away. At 48, she knew her place in the order of things. She had worked there for 3 years, entering at 5 in the morning through the back gate, leaving at 3 in the afternoon. Invisible, silent, part of the furnishings. No one in that company had any idea that 15 years ago, Elena Santos had been SolarTech Innovation's most promising systems engineer, a pioneering energy integration startup, until a project failed spectacularly, accusations of technical error destroyed her reputation, and she lost everything: career, home, marriage. Now she supported her teenage daughter, Haley, 16, working 3 jobs. Janitor at Tech Solutions in the morning, pharmacy attendant in the afternoon, seamstress at home at night. Waking up at 4, sleeping at midnight, carrying a wounded pride she never allowed herself to ask for help or offer explanations. "Mom, I need money for my physics project supplies." Elena looked up from the sewing machine. The clock on the kitchen wall read 11:17 p.m. The small 2-bedroom apartment in the Willow Creek Apartments, in the low-income neighborhood on the city's outskirts, vibrated lightly as buses passed on the main avenue. "How much, honey?" $50. Elena sighed, pulling her worn wallet from her purse. $32. That was all she had until payday in 3 days. "I have 32 here. I can get the rest by Friday. Okay?" Haley nodded. The thin teenager with curly hair was the spitting image of her mother 15 years younger. The same perceptive eyes, the same determined chin. But while Elena hid her intelligence like someone burying a cursed treasure, Haley displayed hers like a flag, maintaining exemplary grades despite their circumstances. "It's so late, Mom. Don't you ever rest?" Elena offered a tired smile. "This dress for Mrs. Henderson is due tomorrow. 2 more stitches and I'm done." In the silence that followed, the whir of the sewing machine filled the apartment. Haley sat in the chair beside her, watching her mother's skilled hands. "You know what my math teacher said today? That I have a natural talent for complex systems." She asked if anyone in the family worked with numbers. Elena felt her stomach clench. She answered without looking up from the fabric. "And what did you say?" "That no one did." Haley hesitated. Was that wrong? Elena didn't answer immediately. She finished the seam, cut the thread, and carefully folded the dress. "Your mother cleans offices and sews clothes, Haley. That's who I am now." It was midnight when she finally lay down. Her body ached, but her mind remained restless. Those equations on the board, variations of the same problem she had tried to solve years ago, in the project that destroyed her life. She closed her eyes, but the numbers danced behind her eyelids, like ghosts of a past that refused to disappear. The nighttime silence at Tech Solutions was different from the daytime silence. Deeper, more honest. Elena was cleaning the hallway leading to the innovation room, where the impossible problem remained written on the whiteboard, illuminated only by the bluish light of standby computer screens. She had already finished all her assigned tasks. She had an hour left on her shift. No one showed up on that floor before 7. She was alone with the impossible. She hesitated at the doorway, her heart racing as if she were about to commit a crime. She dropped the cleaning cart and entered the room. Her steps were so light they barely disturbed the air. She approached the board as one approaches an altar. She looked at her own hands, chapped from product, calloused from work, trembling with fear and, perhaps, desire. She picked up a marker and, before she could stop herself, wrote a line in the lower corner of the board. A single equation, a small correction to the mathematical approach that had tormented the engineers for weeks. The sound of footsteps in the hallway made her freeze. She quickly erased what she had written and returned to the cleaning cart, simulating that she had just entered the room. Ethan Miller, the youngest engineer on the development team, appeared at the door. Tall, thin, with thick-framed glasses and dark circles under his eyes from pulling an all-nighter. He looked surprised to find someone there. "Hi," he frowned. "Sorry, I didn't expect anyone this late. I'm just finishing up, sir." Elena kept her eyes down, moving toward the door. Ethan walked to the board, dropping his backpack onto the table. His eyes scanned the equations and stopped exactly in the corner where Elena had written and erased. He leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. "Wait." He turned to Elena, who was already almost in the hallway. "Did you touch this?" "No, sir. Just cleaning the floor." The young engineer looked at the board again, then back at Elena. "There are marks of a recent wipe here. Must have been one of the engineers last night, sir." "Excuse me." Elena quickly left, her heart pounding against her ribs as she pushed the cart down the corridor. She had been stupid. She could lose her job for something like this. What was she thinking? But that night, at home, while Haley slept, Elena opened a dusty box she kept under her bed. Inside were her university notebooks, published articles, notes from her time at SolarTech. The hasty, confident handwriting seemed to belong to another person. Someone who believed in their own worth. Someone who wasn't afraid to shine. "I was someone," she whispered to the silent room. "I knew things." Her hands stroked the pages as if they were sacred relics. In the corner of one, she found the formula she had tried to write on the board, the same approach for balancing loads during transitions between energy sources that she had developed years ago. In the second week, the crisis at Tech Solutions escalated. An emergency meeting was called when the first full-scale simulation failed completely, crashing the system for 17 minutes. For an urban energy grid, this meant hospitals without power, collapsing transit systems, incalculable losses. Elena was cleaning the corridor near the conference room when the doors opened and excited voices spilled into the space. "We lost New York," Alex's voice boomed. 50 million. Evaporated because we can't demonstrate that the dam system works. "We need more time, Mr. Thorne." It was the voice of Rob Hayes, the senior engineer. "The variables are more complex than. Time is money, Hayes, and we just lost a fortune." Outside, Elena continued working, but her ears caught every word. The ensuing technical discussion described exactly the problem she had spent months trying to solve at SolarTech. Without thinking, she murmured softly, "The weighting variable is wrong." It was as if time froze. The voices inside the room fell silent. Elena realized her fatal mistake. The doors were still open. Alex Thorne appeared in the doorway, his blue eyes locking onto her like guided missiles. "What did you say?" Elena felt her blood turn to ice. "Nothing, sir." Alex, impeccable in his Italian suit, neatly combed graying hair, walked toward her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. No, you said something about weighting variables." He glanced at her badge. Elena, isn't it? Our janitor thinks she can solve what Stanford engineers cannot. Nervous laughter came from the conference room. Elena wished the floor would swallow her whole. I was repeating what I heard. Oh, really? Alex crossed his arms. And how would you know what a weighting variable is? Elena felt the gaze of all the executives and engineers upon her. 30 pairs of eyes fixed on her worn uniform, on her chapped hands, on her insignificant existence. Something inside her broke, or perhaps fixed itself. I studied systems engineering. The room erupted in laughter. Alex guffawed as if he had heard the best joke of the year. Systems engineering, he repeated, turning to his subordinates. Our janitor is an engineer, folks. And where is your degree? Hanging in the broom closet. More laughter. Elena stood tall, her dignity the only thing she had left. UC Berkeley, sir. Graduated in 2001. Alex's smile flickered for an instant. Well, engineer, you better get back to your mop handle before you decide you need to clean up our code too. The following week, Elena was transferred to the graveyard shift, midnight to 6 in the morning. So you don't distract competent people with your fantasies? Explained the cleaning supervisor, clearly embarrassed but unable to defy superior orders. It was punishment, but Alex Thorne had committed his first fatal error. The Tech Solutions building during the early hours was a different world. Emergency lights projected long shadows down the corridors. Abandoned computers in standby mode. Empty rooms with corporate secrets exposed. Elena was no longer the only invisible person in the company. There was also Miguel Rodriguez, the 62-year-old night guard who patrolled the building every hour, and George Adams, 64, responsible for cleaning the lower floors while Elena took care of the upper ones. It was George who found her, on the third night of her new shift, sitting in front of the whiteboard in the innovation room. She had finished cleaning in record time, 3 hours instead of the 6 anticipated. And now she was there, correcting equations, adding variables, recalculating algorithms. Didn't know we had a mathematician among us. George's deep voice startled her. Elena jumped up, the marker clattering to the floor. I was just... She stammered, unable to formulate a plausible excuse. George, a black man with closely cropped gray hair, smiled. The years had carved deep lines into his face, but his eyes held a curious glint. Relax, colleague. I won't rat you out. He entered the room, observing the board with genuine interest. Never understood these things. He pointed to the equations. But I always respected those who do. Elena hesitated, still tense. You should be downstairs. And you should be mopping, not solving problems worth millions. He shrugged. Looks like both of us are outside our designated places. A silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but charged with possibility. I studied philosophy once, George finally said. Didn't finish. Life happened. For kids, sick wife, bills to pay. But I never forgot the little I learned. What did you study? Elena asked, feeling an unexpected connection. Epistemology, theory of knowledge. How we know what we know. He smiled. Ironically, now I clean the floor for people who think they know everything. Elena felt a smile form on her lips, the first in a long time. That night, they shared reheated coffee in disposable cups. Two invisible people witnessing the rebirth of one another. George became her lookout, warning her when Miguel made his rounds, creating distractions when necessary. And Elena plunged back into the world of numbers, algorithms, and complex systems that had once been her home. While Elena worked in the early mornings, the crisis at Tech Solutions deepened. Ethan Miller, the young engineer who had questioned her on the first day, began to notice something strange. Small corrections appeared on the board every morning. Equations rewritten, variables adjusted, as if a mathematical ghost visited the room overnight. Rob Hayes, the meticulous 53-year-old senior engineer, noticed too. Someone is accessing our files, Mr. Thorne, Rob reported during a closed meeting. The logs show activity between 2 and 4 in the morning. Alex drummed his fingers on the marble table. Industrial espionage? Maybe. Or it could be an employee trying to work on the problem on their own. The modifications are interesting. Whoever it is, they understand the subject. Alex frowned. His Tech Solutions empire was threatened not only by the failure of GridSmart 3.0, but by an intruder who seemed to know the system better than his own team. Reinforce security. Monitor access points. I want extra cameras on the 10th floor. His eyes narrowed. And I want to know who this nocturnal genius is. In the 3rd month of the deadline, Elena made a discovery that chilled her blood. Sifting through old files in the system, an illegality for which she could be not only fired but prosecuted. She found documents related to Tech Solutions' acquisition of SolarTech Innovations 15 years ago. SolarTech had been the startup where she worked, the company that developed the original project that failed spectacularly, destroying her career. The project Alex Thorne was now trying to resurrect as GridSmart 3.0. Sitting in the dark, with only the monitor light illuminating her face, Elena read each document with mounting horror. The system failure attributed to her had not been a technical error. The original logs showed modifications to the source code 2 weeks before the final test. Modifications made by a user identified as AT Advisor. Alex Thorne had been a consultant for the acquisition. Alex Thorne had sabotaged the project. Alex Thorne had destroyed her life. The failed startup was bought for 1/10 of its approximate value just 3 weeks after the project's failure. And GridSmart 3.0's current problem was a direct evolution of that very project, using code she herself had written, now expanded to urban scale. Elena felt the room spin around her. 15 years cleaning the floor for the man who had deliberately ruined her life. 15 years of poverty, humiliation, lost opportunities. She needed to sit down, breathe, process. But the sound of footsteps in the corridor alerted her. It was time for Miguel's round. She quickly closed the files, erased the traces of her research, and pretended to wipe down the desk as the guard passed. Everything in order, Ms. Elena? All good, Mr. Miguel. The man in the gray uniform smiled gently. Miguel always treated her with respect, a rarity in her life. You don't look well. You're pale. Just tired. She tried to smile. 3 jobs, you know how it is. The guard nodded empathetically. My wife too. For decades cleaning houses so our son could become a doctor. His wrinkled face softened. Worth every sacrifice when I saw him in that lab coat. Elena felt tears threatening to form. She thought of Haley, her talent for math, her bright future despite the circumstances. Your son is lucky to have you. When Miguel left, Elena returned to the whiteboard, now with new determination. It was no longer just about solving a technical problem, it was about justice, about truth, about finally reclaiming what had been stolen from her. At home, Elena found Haley sitting at the small kitchen table, surrounded by books. Hi, Mom. The teenager looked up, immediately noticing the agitation in her mother's expression. Did something happen? Elena placed her bag on the chair, trying to normalize her breathing. How could she explain to a 16-year-old daughter that her entire life had been built on a lie? Just tired, honey. Haley didn't look convinced. You're shaking. The observation caught Elena off guard. Haley was always too perceptive for her own good. Why didn't you tell me you were an engineer? The question, coming out of nowhere, hit Elena like a punch. She turned to find her bedroom door open and, on the bed, the box that held her past, opened with papers and certificates scattered. You went through my things. I was looking for my birth certificate for the Math Olympics registration. Haley stood up, holding a framed certificate. It was Elena's diploma from UC Berkeley with honors. Why did you hide this from me? Haley's voice carried hurt, confusion, a hint of anger. Elena sank into the chair, suddenly too exhausted to lie. Because it made me weak. Her voice sounded strange even to her own ears. Because it reminded me of everything I lost. Weak, Haley repeated, incredulously. Mom, you have a degree in systems engineering from Berkeley. You're brilliant. How does that make you weak? Because I failed, Haley. I failed spectacularly. Elena looked at her own hands. The last project I led collapsed during the final demonstration. I was accused of fundamental errors. I lost my job, my reputation. Your father left me. We lost the house. Everyone I knew turned their backs on me. Haley sat down slowly, processing the story. But all this time, you could have looked for another job in the field, right? Elena laughed humorlessly. When you are a woman of color and accused of incompetence in a $15 million failure, the doors don't just close. They are bolted shut, sealed, and guarded by watchdogs. The silence that followed was heavy, charged with untold stories, shelved dreams, buried injustices. You still know it, don't you? Haley finally asked. Everything you learned, it's still there. Elena looked at her daughter, this extraordinary girl she raised alone, between cleaning shifts and nights of sewing. This young woman who had her eyes, her determination, and, apparently, her talent for mathematics. Yes, she admitted softly. It's still here. Haley took her mother's hands in hers. Mom, when the principal called me in to say I had engineering potential, I thought, where does that come from? Her eyes were shining now. It was from you. It always was from you. Elena felt something break within her. Not pain, but liberation. Like a wall finally crumbling to let in the light. Solve it, Mom, Haley said with conviction. Be who you really are. Show them who Elena Santos is. The next day, tension at Tech Solutions reached a new peak. A general meeting was called in the main auditorium, all employees, from all departments. Elena was there, in the back, in her cleaning uniform, invisible as always. Alex Thorne walked onto the stage, his tailored suit and silk tie creating a deliberate contrast with the audience. His face showed a tension that his practiced smile couldn't mask. The future of Tech Solutions is at stake. People, his voice boomed over the microphone. In 3 months, we've lost 2 municipal contracts because we haven't solved the grid-smart problem. That's $80 million evaporated. He paused dramatically, looking out at the crowd. So I'm going to do something unprecedented. Alex adjusted his tie. Anyone who solves this gets $100,000 and a permanent position. Engineers, secretaries, security, even custodial staff. Nervous laughter swept through the auditorium. Alex smiled, but his eyes remained cold. Let's see if some hidden genius appears, shall we? His tone was mocking. I'm sure someone with only a high school diploma is going to revolutionize systems engineering. Or perhaps the person who serves coffee will figure out what PhDs couldn't. More laughter, some uncomfortable, others cruel. In the back of the auditorium, Elena felt her face burn. The humiliation was deliberate, a staged performance to put everyone in their proper place, to ensure the invisible remained invisible. But now she knew what he had done. She knew the truth hiding behind that arrogance. It was in the 4th month that fate intervened unexpectedly. Professor Alan Sterling, a renowned specialist in energy systems and Elena's former university advisor, now a retired consultant, was visiting Tech Solutions for an external project evaluation. Elena saw him step out of the elevator, white hair, slightly stooped posture, the same worn leather briefcase he carried 20 years ago when she was his most promising student. She was cleaning the corridor, head down, when he passed. The professor stopped abruptly, as if he had seen a ghost. Elena? Elena Santos. She froze, her heart pounding. Slowly she raised her head to meet the surprised eyes of her old mentor. Professor Sterling. My God. It is you. The shock on his face was genuine. You? Here? Like this? Elena felt shame, wounded pride, and a strange sense of relief, all at the same time. Being recognized after so long in invisibility was like resurfacing from a long drowning. I work here, Professor. She indicated the uniform, the cleaning cart. Alan Sterling seemed unable to process the information. But you were brilliant. What happened? After SolarTech folded, you just vanished. I didn't vanish, Professor, she said with a calm she didn't feel. I was erased. The professor looked around, uncomfortable with the conversation in the hallway. Can we talk somewhere more private? 20 minutes later, in the small ground floor cafeteria at Tech Solutions, Elena listened to the proposal that could change her life again. I still have plenty of contacts in the sector, Elena. I can help you come back. Professor Sterling spoke with genuine enthusiasm. Your mind is too valuable to be pushing a cleaning cart. A flame of hope ignited in Elena's chest. How would that work? You'd work with me as an associate consultant. We'd start with smaller projects, rebuilding your credibility. He smiled gently. In fact, you could start with this grid-smart problem. I'm certain you'd spot the flaw quickly. Hope turned to caution. What would the terms be? The professor hesitated briefly. Well, since it's a comeback, you'd sign on as my associate. The rights to any developed solution would technically fall under my consulting firm. Elena felt the temperature of the conversation change. And the technical credit? Shared naturally. But he chose his words carefully. To facilitate acceptance by the market, my name would need to come first. The unspoken words hung between them. No one will believe you after so long. You need my reputation. That's how the world works, Elena, he explained, not maliciously, just with professional pragmatism. I'm offering you a bridge back. Elena looked at her old professor. A good man, not malicious, just conditioned by the system that had always privileged him. He genuinely believed he was helping, offering the only possible path. I appreciate the offer, Professor, she finally said, but I prefer to build my own bridge. Sterling looked genuinely disappointed. Think about it, Elena. Opportunities like this don't come around twice. She smiled, a sad but determined smile. Some victories are only worthwhile if they are entirely ours, Professor. You taught me that yourself, remember? In the 5th month, the net was closing. Additional cameras were installed in the innovation room. The system now registered any login, even on computers in standby mode. Rob Hayes, obsessed with finding the nocturnal intruder, began making surprise visits during the early morning hours. Elena had to be more creative. She developed the equations in notebooks she hid in her cleaning cart. She used reflections in the glass to monitor corridors. She started running simulations at the public library during her rare free moments. George and Miguel became her silent allies, creating distractions when necessary. The stress took its toll. Elena lost 10 pounds. She slept only 3 hours a night. She survived on coffee and determination. But finally, with 3 weeks left before the deadline, she completed the solution. It wasn't just a fix. It was a complete reimagination of the system, elegant and efficient, transforming the seemingly impossible problem into an obvious answer. The challenge now was how to present it. A janitor showing up with the solution in the official format would be immediately dismissed, ridiculed, and possibly accused of intellectual theft. That's when Ethan Miller, the young engineer who had seen her that first night, sought her out in the staff locker room. Elena, he called softly from the doorway. Can I talk to you? She was finishing a long shift, exhausted. Her eyes met his cautiously. Yes. Ethan stepped in, closing the door behind him. He looked nervous, constantly glancing back as if afraid of being followed. I know it's you. Elena's heart raced. I'm what? The nocturnal ghost. The person who's been correcting the equations. He looked directly at her. I saw you that night, when everyone thought I was gone. You were working on the system, not cleaning. Elena felt the floor disappear beneath her feet. She would be fired, prosecuted, maybe even arrested for accessing restricted systems. I can explain. You don't need to. Ethan interrupted her, to her surprise. I've been following your work for weeks. It's brilliant, Elena. Revolutionary. And I finally understood why it seemed familiar. He pulled out a faded academic article from his pocket. Dynamic Systems of Energy Redistribution in Integrated Networks, by Elena Santos, 2006. He read the title. Your paper was the theoretical basis for 3 of my university projects. Elena was speechless, looking at her own article published years before everything fell apart. How did you find that? University Digital Library. He smiled. When I started noticing the pattern in your corrections, it felt familiar. I tried searching patent files, but then I remembered this article I cited in my thesis. His eyes shone with genuine admiration. You are the Elena from this article, aren't you? She nodded slowly, unable to deny the evidence. And you solved the problem. It wasn't a question. Completely. I saw your simulations. They work perfectly. No one will believe it, Elena finally said. A janitor solving what Stanford engineers couldn't? Ethan smiled, a youthful, almost mischievous grin. That's why I'm here. You need to present this officially, through the human resources channel that Alex himself created with that public challenge. But he can't deny you the opportunity. It was announced to the whole company. We have witnesses. Ethan seemed excited. And more importantly, I have everything documented. Your nighttime contributions, the corrections, the evolution of the work. Including, he lowered his voice, including I found out more about what happened with SolarTech. You weren't the only one harmed in that acquisition, Elena. At that moment, something shifted inside her. It was no longer just about solving a technical problem or proving her worth. It was about justice for herself and for everyone who had been rendered invisible, diminished, erased. We're going to need a very good plan, Ethan. He smiled. I've already started working on it. The day of confrontation arrived like an inevitable storm. The 10th floor conference room, usually reserved for board members and investors, had been prepared for the final presentation of the proposed solutions for GridSmart 3.0. Executives in impeccable suits, senior engineers with tablets, representatives from municipal clients, all gathered for what Alex called Tech Solutions' Last Hope. Rob Hayes presented first. His solution, developed by the entire technical team, proposed a partial reformulation of the system, reducing the original ambition. It will work in 80% of situations, he admitted, but we will need manual redundancy for extreme peaks. Investors did not look impressed. The representative from Chicago shook his head negatively. We need 100% reliability, not 80%. 3 other engineers presented variations of the same approach. None met the necessary standard. That's when the door opened and Elena entered. Not in her cleaning uniform. She had requested the day off. She wore the only formal clothes she owned. Simple black slacks and a white blouse she used for job interviews. Her hair was pulled back in an austere bun. She wore no makeup or jewelry. She couldn't afford them. A confused murmur swept through the room. Alex, reviewing notes, looked up. Who are you and how did you get in here? This meeting is restricted. My name is Elena Santos. Her voice sounded surprisingly firm. And I have come to present my solution for the GridSmart 3.0 problem, as per your public challenge, Mr. Thorne. Alex frowned, confused, until recognition illuminated his face. The janitor. He laughed, looking at the other executives. Our cleaning engineer has come to solve our problem, everyone. Polite laughter echoed through the room. Alex gestured to a chair in the corner. Sit there and watch the professionals work, Elena. I promise you can clean the room afterward. Elena didn't move. I formally signed up through the human resources system for this presentation, Mr. Thorne. I have the protocol and confirmation here. She indicated the papers in her hand. Your challenge was, anyone who solves the problem wins $100,000 and a permanent position. Anyone were your exact words. Alex's smile wavered. Caroline Mendez, a board director and Alex's aunt, stood up. Let her present, Alex. Her voice tolerated no contestation. You made the public challenge yourself. Alex looked about to object but reconsidered upon seeing his aunt's expression. He gestured toward the whiteboard with disdain. Sure, why not? This will be entertaining. Show us your solution, please. The sarcasm was palpable. But as Elena approached the whiteboard, something changed in her posture. She was no longer the invisible woman in the hallway. She was the engineer she had always been. The fundamental problem with GridSmart 3.0 is not a coding error, she began. her voice gaining confidence with every word. It is a conceptual error in the approach to energy source transition. Her hands began to dance across the board. Equations flowed like water, concepts connected with surgical precision. Silence gradually took over the room. One engineer grabbed his tablet and began checking calculations. Another stood up to see better. Alex stopped smiling. Elena spoke for 20 uninterrupted minutes, explaining not only the solution but revealing the fundamental flaws in the previous approach. As she developed her reasoning, Ethan discreetly projected simulations onto the screen, proving every point. As you can see, she indicated the performance graphs. This approach not only solves the current problem but expands the system's capacity by 140% beyond the original specification. The silence was deafening. The experts present looked at each other, expressions of astonishment and involuntary respect on their faces. That would work, Rob Hayes muttered, looking genuinely impressed. The calculations check out. The simulations confirm it. Alex stood up, his face red. Wait a minute. Where did you get this? You certainly didn't develop this alone. Who helped you? His tone was accusatory. Who gave you access to our servers? Elena met his gaze. I developed this solution alone, Mr. Thorne. And as for the servers, she smiled slightly. Let's just say I had plenty of time during my early morning shifts. Alex turned pale, the implication clear. You were the nocturnal intruder? That's intellectual property invasion. I will sue you for. I have a question, Mr. Thorne. Elena interrupted him, her tone calm but firm. Do you recognize this code? She pointed to a specific segment projected on the screen. Why would I recognize random code? Because it is the base code of the original SolarTech Innovations project. Elena took a step toward him. The same project that mysteriously failed 15 years ago, leading to the acquisition of the company by Tech Solutions for 1/10 of its value. The room grew tense. Caroline Mendez leaned forward, suddenly very interested. What exactly are you insinuating? Alex asked, his voice dangerously low. I am not insinuating anything. Elena projected another document. I am showing evidence. This is the system modification log 2 weeks before the final test. The user AT advisor introduced a deliberate flaw into the balancing algorithm. She turned to face Alex directly. For Alexander Thorne, you were the external consultant for the acquisition. You sabotaged the project to devalue the company. The silence in the room was now suffocating. Alex opened his mouth, closed it again, looked at the executives around him with an expression of growing panic. This is ridiculous. A janitor inventing conspiracy theories. I am not just a janitor, Mr. Thorne. Elena spoke clearly. I am Elena Santos, lead engineer of Project Solaris at SolarTech Innovations. The same engineer who was publicly blamed for a failure she did not commit. The same engineer who lost everything, career, home, reputation, while you profited millions from the fraudulent acquisition. Caroline Mendez slowly rose. Alex, is this true? The question hung in the air like a sentence. Aunt Caroline, obviously not. This woman is. The documents appear genuine. Rob Hayes intervened, looking at the screens with increasing discomfort. The system logs have a valid digital signature. Caroline Mendez, serious expression and rigid posture, turned to her assistant. I want a complete copy of all this documentation immediately, and call our legal department. Her cold eyes fixed on her nephew. There will be an emergency board meeting this afternoon. The following weeks were a whirlwind. An independent audit confirmed Elena's allegations. Alex Thorne was removed from the presidency of Tech Solutions pending a full investigation. The scheme was larger than it initially appeared. Documents revealed he had manipulated multiple projects over the years, creating artificial problems to justify inflated budgets and outsourcing to companies that paid him kickbacks. Elena's solution for GridSmart 3.0 was successfully implemented. The system now operated with 99.98% reliability in all tests. Municipal contracts were recovered, and new ones were signed. Caroline Mendez, now interim president of Tech Solutions, offered Elena the position of Director of Technological Innovation, with a salary 6 times higher than what she earned as a janitor. To general surprise, Elena refused. "Trust, once broken, is not easily mended," she explained during the formal meeting. "I appreciate the offer, but I prefer to follow another path." Elena accepted only the $100,000 prize money, as per the original challenge. With that amount, plus subsequent compensation from the defamation lawsuit against Alex Thorne, she opened a small consulting firm specializing in sustainable energy systems. She hired George Adams as her administrative partner, offering the former philosophy student a chance to finally use his organizational talent. Ethan Miller joined the team as an associate engineer, bringing youthful enthusiasm and new perspectives. Miguel Rodriguez, the security guard, gained a minority share as an investor. "For my grandkids' future," he explained proudly. Elena did not build an empire, but she built something more valuable: dignity. 6 months later, Elena sat in the small office of her consulting firm downtown. The space was modest but elegant, light wood tables, plants in the corners, abundant natural light. On the wall behind her desk, the UC Berkeley diploma had finally emerged from the dusty box, now proudly framed. Haley entered, holding an envelope. "Mom, your credential for the National Sustainable Energy Congress arrived." She held out the document, proud. "You're going to be a keynote speaker." Elena took the envelope with a smile. At 49, she looked 10 years younger than she had 6 months ago. The weight of shame and false failure had vanished from her shoulders. Her eyes sparkled again. "Who would have thought, huh?" She opened the envelope, admiring the official invitation. "From janitor to invited specialist in less than a year." "I would have," Haley smiled, sitting in the chair across from her mother. "I always knew you were amazing." "Actually, you didn't," Elena corrected gently. "Because I didn't even know myself anymore. I had forgotten." Haley was thoughtful for a moment. "What do you think happened to Alex?" Elena had followed the news. The former Tech Solutions president faced multiple lawsuits, had lost most of his fortune in legal settlements, and was living reclusively in his country home since the scandal. "He's reaping what he sowed," Elena answered simply. For a moment, they both remained silent, watching the movement on the street through the open office window. "Mom," Haley finally asked, "what did you learn from all this?" Elena looked at her daughter, this extraordinary young woman who now dreamed of studying engineering, who grew up watching her mother not only survive but triumph in the face of injustice. "I learned that invisibility is sometimes armor, but it must never be a prison," she answered slowly. "And that solving the impossible doesn't transform you. It just reveals who you always were." The phone rang, interrupting the moment. George answered at the reception and transferred the call. "Elena, it's the Chicago Municipal Infrastructure Department. They want to hire our consultancy for the new smart lighting project." Life continued, now on her own terms. "And you, watching this video? How many times have you felt that your talent, your intelligence, your capacity were being wasted? How many times have you allowed the judgment of others to define who you are or what you are capable of?" Elena's story is fictional, but it represents the reality of thousands of people who have had their dreams interrupted, their abilities questioned, their lives redefined by circumstances that seemed insurmountable. If you also carry a hidden treasure, a talent, a skill, a dream that the world didn't allow you to express, remember, it is never too late to reclaim your true identity. It is never too late to show the world who you really are. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to receive our next stories of overcoming and triumph. And leave in the comments, "Rebirth," if you are also ready to reveal your true potential to the world. Thank you for watching, and remember, your story is not finished being written. Note, this is a work of inspirational fiction. Any resemblance to real people or events is purely coincidental. No content in this video should be interpreted as encouraging illegal practices, such as system invasion or unauthorized access to corporate data.